Welcome back. Let's go.
Yeah, I guess so. I still ain't sure I'm the right therapist for that fella.
There may not be a right therapist for him, but let us think positively. He has put himself in your care, and that is a tremendous step.
Let's tame him like a horse.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm thinking it's gonna be an uphill battle, though.
At least his core distortion is clear, don't you think? You know what it is, I am sure.
It's gotta be emotional reasoning. I ain't never seen someone so dramatic.
Certainly Edmund's thinking is derived from his intense emotions, but what spurs his emotions?
It's personalization, right?
Of course, a distortion common to many with narcissistic tendencies.
Yep, it's the Edmund Keane show, all day, every day.
I recognize your disdain, but pause a moment. It must be difficult for Edmund to make everything all about him all the time, don't you think?
He doesn't have to make everything about him, though.
He doesn't know that. Keep digging, Samuel. You will find his truth. Choose your distortions well.
I think I'm all holstered up now.
Very good, Samuel. I wish you patience and compassion. Good luck.
See you later, Andy. All right, now what did Andy teach me? Breathe. I think I'm ready. Right on time. I think I hear him coming. Hey, Edmund, good to see you. How you been feeling these past few weeks?
Empty, my dear boy. Empty. I am but a vessel made for a single purpose. But alas, and alack, that purpose is in supply most rare.
You mean acting, right?
Aye, that's the rub. Acting, my dear boy. Acting. My thespian blood goes rancid with stagnation, and the only cure seems to me irreprehensible now. I do not wish to face these mortal directors, for they dare to tell me my art.
Ain't that what directors are supposed to do?
Oh, my dear boy, some are born great, some achieve greatness, and others have greatness thrust upon them. No director can thrust greatness upon the already great. In mine own case, mine greatness hath already been achieved.
There is no room for improvement in Edmund at all. Is he truly perfect? I am going to make an educated guess and say that this is untrue.
No director can thrust greatness upon the all.
There is no room.
No director can thrust greatness upon the.
There is no room for improvement.
No director.
Nobody's saying you ain't great, Eddie. You're talking in extremes. If every actor's awful or perfect, what the heck's a director supposed to do?
A most unenviable position, to be sure. I have directed, and did find it most odious. Indeed, a great actor can make the less talented seem even smaller.
But you get it. All the director's doing is making sure everyone's doing what they're best at, right? That ain't saying you ain't great.
I suppose, but it is most frustrating when I know best.
Well, maybe you can help me understand a little better. You said that greatness was thrust upon you, right? How did that happen?
Ah, you are curious to hear what circumstances created this actor non pare. I cannot blame you. Well, recounting such a history will please me indeed. I first rattled the foundations of the stage as a mere babe. Indeed, too young for memory, and yet old enough to command attention. Clad only in swaddling cloth at the age of 4, I was Cupid himself. But my arrows seemingly went astray, for the entirety of the audience fell in love with me. It is the stuff of legend. For tender as my mind was, I could not bear witness to my own greatness. But it does prove that I was indeed born great.
But you said greatness was thrust upon you.
It was a matter of necessity. You may not guess it from my gentle speech, but I am no lordling. Selfishly, and surely to spite me, my father shuffled off his mortal coil when I was but a babe in arms, ere I ever graced the stage. It left my mother and myself in dire straits.
Hold on a sec. You said your old man died selfishly. Well, what do you mean?
Well, what kind of a father drinks himself to death when he has a beautiful baby son at home? I at least waited until my son was older before I did the same.
Okay.
Eddie, come on. Listen to yourself. I'm sure you didn't die to spite your son, just as your pa didn't die to spite you. I ain't gonna deny his choices hurt you, but they weren't all about you.
Forgive me then. 'Tis ever the fate of an actor to feel every emotion more keenly. The situation my mother and I were left in was most precarious. We were the lowest of the low, you see. We lived in the rookeries and begged for our bread. But he that hath wit must make content with his fortune's fit. And oh, did we beg! She was my Queen Gertrude, and I her filthy little Hamlet. Did I mention I played Hamlet at age 14?
No, I hadn't heard that.
Well, anyway, my mother was a competent actress, but it was my wit alone that saved us from destitution. Forsooth, I was so prodigious that, at the age of 7, I garnered the attention of one Reginald Flopbot of the Worthington Flopbots. 'Twas he who paid to get me off the streets and into the dormitories. He said, "Edmund, my cherub, the streets are not for you. One day you will be the greatest of actors."
Hey, how about that? You went and proved him right.
Piffle. Master Flopbot never gave a fig about my potential. I was a prop to him, a symbol of his generosity and high breeding. Every month he would stage an elaborate party with all the well-to-do society of London. The dandy fop would stand upon a dais and announce himself as the savior of the city's poor. That was my cue. I would be lowered down from the rooftop, wearing naught but swaddling clothes and a set of opulent wings. The gentry's delight was my dungeon, but I would flit among them, reprising my breakout role as Cupid by shooting little arrows of love at them. At the age of 7, it was most disquieting. At 11, on the cusp of manhood, the shame was too much to bear.
Dang, Eddie, that sounds awful. That Flopbot fella had no right to do that to you.
No, indeed. I remember my last performance quite vividly. The titters and leering glances from the guests linger ever in the back of my mind. And fool that I was, I played my part still. I should have plunged mine arrows into that fool Flopbot's chest instead of shaming myself.
Hold on a sec there. You saying you should have stood up for yourself. Where the heck does that come from? You were 11 years old. How the heck were you supposed to know any better?
I knew enough to know that being paraded around in swaddling clothes was a farce, and yet I played along. So yes, I should have done something about it.
And then what would have happened?
I don't know, but I would have been spared the indignity that I participated in.
You didn't have those answers then, and ain't nobody would expect you to. That's kind of how exploitation works, Eddie.
Indeed, the word exploit was not even in the standard lexicon at that point. How could I have known? Regardless, I swore that night to never be a puppet again. I stole away and gave myself to the mercy of Poseidon. The bargain was struck, and he swallowed up my hated swaddling clothes and wings. In desperation, I signed on with a mercantile shipping agency. I thought, perhaps, that my body would bend more than my soul. But oh, did I toil! Life upon the sea is most cruel. Biting winds did carve my visage. Low words hardened my heart, and heavy weights left me bent. By the time I had fulfilled my bargain with the Lord of the Sea, I had become an older man, my efforts etched into every crease on my face.
Dang, sounds intense. How long were you at this job?
An age, a life, 6 months, each one a hungry leech torn from my bleeding body. I am convinced this gauntlet was prepared for me alone, for ne'er in history has one so blessed by grace been subjected to such toil.
Eddie, I gotta stop you there. It's gonna be a lot easier to accept your truth when you realize you ain't alone in your suffering. Hell, there ain't nothing more human than suffering. And historically, kids ain't had it so good.
But none suffered as I suffered. A boy such as I was not meant for such misery.
Compadre, I had my first kill and no home at 12 years old. My brother had a stutter his whole life on account of the regular beatings my stepdaddy gave him. Maybe your suffering felt like the only suffering in the world, but it wasn't. And it'll hurt less when you realize you weren't alone. But keep telling me your story. I already know there ain't nobody like you in the world, so don't worry on that account.
Now then, at last, we close the circle as nature ever demands. I return to London and into the graces of my dear Uncle Moses and his comely mistress, Charlotte. 'Twas she who filled my dramaturgical quiver with dire arrows, fletched by the bard himself. And when my deft fingers plucked the bow of humanity, at last I was free.
Huh?
I cannot speak more plainly. The good woman taught me the works of Shakespeare, and armed with this knowledge, I conquered the stage and saved myself from toil.
Oh, well, right.
And so, you see, the die was cast from the moment I was born. The stage was made for me, and it was my skill upon it that saved me from the streets and saved me once again from a life at sea.
Eddie, my man, I got some good news and bad news for you. The truth of the matter is, fate doesn't give a stable full of horse shit about you. Ain't none of us are that special. The world ain't waiting for us to show up. It's just gonna keep turning.
Perhaps you are right, my dear boy. You are correct. My success was not because of the fates, but in spite of them. The fates said, "Edmund, you are a child of the slums." But I shamed the immortal hags in my own manner. The stage roused my spirit. Thus I knew my destiny lay upon it.
I can see why acting means so much to you, Eddie. I probably feel damn near the same about the things that got me out of my bad days.
Thank you. Then you understand how my alienation from the theater does pain me so. And yet, the cure is as deadly as the illness. These damnable critics! Not a single lifetime among them, and they deign to challenge my interpretation of the written word. They simply cannot relate to my singular experience. I will bare my soul upon that stage, and they will all sneer and malign it on their internet profiles.
You're so certain that them critics are all the same, but I think that ain't being honest with yourself. Not all critics are bad. It takes work to be good at something, so of course the decent critics are gonna be rarer.
What you say rings true, indeed. Although past critics were flabbergasted at my portrayal of King Lear, not all were. And modern perspectives have affirmed that my interpretation was nothing short of brilliant.
Yeah, you get it. I took a look at your Wikipedia entry last night, Eddie. Maybe you've had a few bad critics here and there, but history says you're a legend, and your work speaks for itself. Hell, you were around before film was ever a thing, and people still remember you.
Ah, your words warm me, as an ersatz son for the one we have forsaken. With thy help shall I gird my soul mayhap, and grace the stage once more.
Ersatzson. Ersatz is a German word for replacement. Replacement son.
Well, let's talk about that then. What's the biggest thing stopping you from getting back up on that stage right now?
That it all simply might not be worth it. Why should I bare my damned soul when the audience hath not the sight to see it?
Maybe I can ask you a question then. What if there were no audience?
No audience? Do you know what a stage is, sir? It is a platform where life in brief may be portrayed. It is a platform because it is separate from the audience. Without such, the stage ceases to be a stage.
As in, if a tree falls in the woods and no one's around to hear it, does it make a sound?
Simply but elegantly put, my dear boy. Without the audience, the stage loses all meaning, like a monarch without a kingdom.
Just a minute there, partner. You're saying that the stage is nothing without the audience. But I gotta ask you, where does the acting come from?
Ah, but from simple tongues, the purest of queries, narrow in breadth, but as deep as the sea. The source of acting is everything, my boy. The roots of acting are intertwined with those of life itself.
So does acting come from the audience, or from everything?
My dear boy, you prove yet again, as the bard oft did, that 'tis the fool who sees the truth as it is. I bow to your simple wisdom.
Thanks, I guess. Let's figure out how we can bring it back to acting. Forget the audience. I know we can't see in mirrors and all, but what do you think of filming yourself?
Brilliant notion. Yes, I shall become my own audience. I shall bring myself to rapture. Forsooth, if I cannot pleasure myself, whom can I pleasure?
We're still talking about acting, right?
Oh, my dear boy, the pleasures of the flesh are secondary to one who knows character above all else. Indeed, we speak of the noble art. I shall do as you suggest. If there is one on this lonely orb that can inspire an artist such as I, it is myself.
I ain't sure I'd put it exactly that way, but I think you're touching on the thing we've been talking about. The motivation's got to come from you, amigo.
We are of one mind, dear boy. Perhaps I left my muse in the mortal realm, but I shall find him once more. Not only for myself, but also for my public. Yea, the masses flock to my Wikipedia page as moths to a flame, each a silent plea for the return of the one true artisan of the stage.
Now hold your horses there, fella. You're reading a little too much into the whole Wikipedia thing. There's 1.5 million reasons why people might be looking you up. I mean, I hear tell the biggest Wikipedia page out there is the one for that coronavirus that got all them mortals all worked up. And I'm pretty sure they don't want that coming back.
Oof. Very much oof.
And thus dost thou scuttle a burgeoning friendship with the cannons of enmity. Why must you challenge me so?
That's my job, compadre. Ain't we had some good breakthroughs today? We couldn't have gotten there if I'd been busy agreeing with everything you said.
Oh, very well. But I still say you are most vexatious.
I've been called worse. I think we got some homework for you, though, right? You're gonna film yourself and do some acting for its own sake. We'll check back in a few weeks. But Eddie, I think you're doing great. We made a lot of progress today.
Naturally. The human condition is my oeuvre. Nevertheless, you have been a competent guide. You have reminded me of what is most important in unlife. Me. I should like to give you a gift.
Uh-huh.
Oh, come on. You don't need to do nothing like that.
Nonsense. It is meaningless to me, but it is beyond price for you. It is my headshot, signed with my autograph.
Yes. Please hang it in your in your coffin. Please.
Oh, thanks, Eddie.
Cherish it always. If you help me to find my muse, then it is a gift even more precious. And I will find it ere we next meet. Of that, I promise you.
Well, let's not put the pressure on, amigo. Just enjoy some acting. That's all I'm asking for. I'll see you in a few weeks then, okay?
Verily, so it shall be. Godspeed then, boy. Thou shalt witness me new and on. Farewell.
A job well done, Samuel. I was particularly impressed at the way you challenged Edmund on what acting means to him.
Yeah, he's a weird fella, but I think he's gonna do okay.
It can be hard for our kind to retain our intrinsic motivation. Something must keep him going. I do, but you, Samuel, must rest. The work you have done in these past 2 months deserves to be celebrated, so do not linger here in this dusty room. Perhaps you can even be encouraged to dance.
Let's do the dance. Let's talk to Crimson about why we don't dance.
I think I'm gonna need a lot more therapy myself to get to that point.
Oh. Will we see him dance in the end? Please let us see him dance in the end.
Very well, Samuel. Then let us at least make sure you get well nourished. Find a friendly neck downstairs, my friend. You deserve it. And rest in peace.
Well, they say don't let your babies grow up to be cowboys, but maybe don't let them be actors either. Time to dish with Crimson a little. I gotta talk to some more folks, though. Andy's mainly my teacher, so I'm starting to feel like Crimson's my only friend. Hey, only friend.
Excuse me?
Not only fans, only friend.
What? Oh, yeah, Crimson. Hey, Crimson.
Are you blushing, vampire?
No, that ain't possible.
It's all right. It's nice to hear from a vampire who's younger than Jesus. Now, let's hear how this week went before you go out there and find friend number 2.
All right, real quick. This client of mine, he had a real bad time as a kid. Worse than I did, it sounds like. But he found fame early, and now he's talking about fate and how he's destined for greatness again.
Met plenty of destined for greatness folk in D.C. I lost patience for it. How do you think you handled him?
I learned my lessons from the last session. He didn't threaten to jump off a cliff this time or anything. I gave him an assignment to film himself doing something he loves doing. He seemed excited about that.
You're either brave or adorable, Sam Walls.
There's nothing brave about it. As for adorable, well, some have used words to that effect before.
Okay, now I know you're confident enough to get out there. Giddy up.
Here we go, right to the edge of the dance floor, but not on it. Don't want anyone getting any funny ideas.
Once more alone, I see.
Hello, pretty.
You scared the shit out of me.
But you can't shit. You're a vampire. Know that I see much, vampire, and that I like what I see.
Oh, it's her again. Well, I was hoping to find a mortal friend, or at least a willing Nick. Now, what do mortals of this time talk about?
We can only be awkward.
They ever play the classics in here? A little Oh Susanna or Old Folks at Home?
No, they don't. All your favorite songs have been long forgotten now.
Yeah.
Well, what songs do you like?
If I told you, would you know them?
Probably not.
I see.
I see. I see. I see. I see. I see. I see. I see.
You see a lot, don't you?
Yeah.
Why don't you tell me what you see?
I see an interesting mortal. Someone observant. Someone who isn't afraid to have their own style.
That is what you observe. It is not what you see.
Well, fine, you tell me what I see.
You see the long vein across my throat. It looks very juicy, doesn't it?
Well, now that you mention it, it does.
Then consent is given. Do not hesitate, vampire.
Shucks, that was something else. You got good circulation there.
I see. And what do I taste like?
Kinda earthy. You could use some iron. What do you eat most often?
I eat a lot of carrots. They're supposed to be good for one's eyesight, and I like to see. I see now that you are tired and wish to enter your state of torpor.
Well, maybe I'll see myself out then.
Dad jokes. Yes, that's the only correct reaction.
That's offensive.
Oh wow. Okay, I take it back.
I'm going to leave now.
Shoot, was it something I said? Well, at least I got a full belly. And now, time for some shut-eye.
Good evening, Samuel. I believe you are seeing the Ancient One tonight, aren't you?
No, we are doing that in the next episode. Now it's time to save. Save, save, save. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye.